convinced we're in danger of the sort of terrorist attacks that will make the bombing of the 1993 Trade Center look like little kids playing with firecrackers.
Predictive programming is a form of mass mind control, used to make the population more accepting of planned future events. The media you are about to see was either created or released before September 11, 2001.
The Lone Gunman was an X-Files spin-off, released in the spring of 2001. In its pilot episode, which premiered just 6 months prior to the September 11th attacks, rogue members of the United States government remotely hijack an airliner departing Boston, planning to crash it into the World Trade Center.
You said they intend to bring us down in the middle of New York City?
We're going to crash the plane into the World Trade Center.
About to explode. What do?
I just want to know where to put the camera.
This will not stand.
Oh, I'd love to see New York. We could all go with the bus company's special super sitter fare.
In the 1999 movie The Matrix, Neo is interrogated by his nemesis Agent Smith. In this scene there is a brief moment when you can see Neo's passport, and its expiry date, which is only viewable if you pause at the right moment. Chillingly, his passport expires on September 11, 2001.
The movie Fight Club was released on November 11, 1999, which in and of itself is an interesting numerological date. 11111999. Okay. But does the movie have a 9/11 connection? You bet! You'll remember that the movie ends with the bombing of financial institutions. This is done by controlled demolition. These last two buildings look just like the Twin Towers to me.
This is the teaser trailer for the original Spider-Man movie. It was released in front of the movie Jurassic Park 3, on July 18, 2001, only 2 months before September 11th. The imagery is clear. The World Trade Center will soon be targeted.
This was a Flash arcade game where players shoot down planes heading towards the towers, and if a plane hit the towers, it would pancake.
Ocean's 11 was released on December 7th of 2001, and its controlled demolition scene had to be changed in post-production after the events of September 11th. In the theatrical version the scene is overlaid with CGI. However, the original footage shot for this was of the New York Hotel and Casino, all filmed before the attacks. Did the producers feel that it was too close to reality? Or were the elites covering their obvious tracks? You can still see the original here where you can easily pick out the Empire State Building. This is the World Trade Center Building 7, which is the only building in history to collapse into its own footprint because of fire. It was not hit by either plane. Amazing that it came crumbling down exactly like a controlled demolition.
This will not stand. This will not stand. stand.
In the 1985 classic, Back to the Future, at a scene called the Twin Pines Mall, we will bear witness to a sudden surprise terrorist attack, perpetrated by a group of Muslim terrorists. The attack is at the Twin, which is a reference to the Twin Towers. When we turn the sign upside down, the digits on the clock read 911 or 911. Also at this scene, Doc shows us two stopwatches, both of which display encoded 911s. Is this only a coincidence? The pines are the towers, and this symbol system is confirmed in Back to the Future Part 2, where we see the twin pines appear again on a projection movie screen in Marty's future house. Marty's family gathers around the movie screen, and the twin pines actually morph into the twin towers. This is because the twin pines are the twin towers. The pines are the towers. Pines, towers. And the Twin Pines Mall is the Twin Towers Mall, which is why all the clocks here secretly say 9/11 and why there will be a Muslim terrorist attack resulting in the destruction of the Twin Pines, or the Twin Towers. But the appearance of the towers is not a random backdrop, as we can see the Statue of Liberty lurking just as secretly as the towers, making this scene a secret recreation of New York City, where Marty's family has gathered to stare at Ground Zero. Of these three characters staring at Ground Zero, one of them is completely upside down. But in the entire Back to the Future saga, this is the only time when an upside-down character will ever appear. The hint being given here is to observe the scene from his perspective by turning it upside down. But when doing so, the Twin Towers are clearly shown to be falling down. In the entire history of cinema, this scene of Back to the Future is the most literal depiction ever made showing the Twin Towers falling down. So how is it possible that this scene would occur in a story that already contains a terrorist attack by Muslims at the Twins on 9/11, where the Twins are the Twin Towers, which then execute Hollywood's best depiction of the Twin Towers collapse? But Back to the Future doesn't just portray this attack, it develops into an elaborate warning about it.
I can just go back early and warn him.
I have to tell you about the future!
Doc, about the future. You will be shot by terrorists.
But Marty is carrying more essential information about the future. He knows the exact time and date that a tower will be struck.
Save the clock tower! Save the clock tower! Don't forget to take a flyer. Save the clock tower!
In a story we already suspect of being a 9/11 warning, how is it possible that this phrase appears on a flyer telling the future? Then, when the tower strike takes place, a giant flaming 9/11 is ignited in the street.
BuzzFeed dug up an old quote from Donald Trump, talking about a large-scale terror attack 19 months before 9/11.
Well, hello. Welcome, friends, to The Reversion. Glad that you've decided to join me this evening on September 11th, which happens to be New Year's Day on the Egyptian calendar, and that is obviously by design. So I see you all in the chat. Welcome on in. We're streaming live here on YouTube and Substack as well, and over on Twitter. I hope my mic is okay. Let me see if it sounds like maybe it's too loud. Yeah, let me know if I'm coming in clear. One sec here. Yeah, so there's a lot going on right now. Obviously, there's a lot that I could be talking about, and I didn't want to get off course here because I had this stream planned for quite some time. And I wanted to do something for 9/11 because this is just such a pivotal moment in history. As we all know, many of you who tuned in may have not even been alive when 9/11 happened. So, this may be a new perspective that you get on this monumental event that occurred at the start of the new millennium. So we're going to be looking at a lot of this, as you can see here, and judging by the stream title as well, this is the disclaimer that you're going to see some occult imagery here. I tried to kind of limit the amount of exposure to that because, well, it's just not good to expose yourself to these symbols. Not that they have any power over us, but, that they do have real effects on our consciousness, and so we don't want to kind of like overexpose ourselves to this. I will be drawing primarily from a text called "The Most Dangerous Book in the World" by S.K. Bain. The subtitle is 9/11 as a Mass Ritual. So a lot of the material that we'll be covering is from that perspective. I read the full book and kind of tried to throw together a little bit of a presentation here. So this is going to be a little bit different because I actually have some material prepared. However, I will warn you, it's still just as scattered. So there's plenty that, I'm sure I missed here. So if you want to remind me of certain things, the best way to do that will be through a super chat or donation. You can see the links in the description there for how to donate. I appreciate all of that because, who knows what's going to happen with this video. I'm sure it'll be demonetized. But so, welcome here. There's a lot going on. As I said, obviously, a very tragic event occurred where on the world stage, we all witnessed a very tragic event with Charlie Kirk getting assassinated. Very bizarre because this was the first time ever that I learned about a public figure dying by seeing the video of his execution before I even read any words about it. So it was very shocking to me. And as somebody who's been, let's say, initiated into 9/11 conspiracy and a lot of the things that we're going to cover here tonight, you'll see what I mean. Every year around this time, there's kind of like a series of, to varying degrees, tragic events that occur. And, again, we're going to explore why that is. There's a lot of psychological warfare that's going on here. And, so yesterday this happened. And then, today there was another shooting I just saw a couple hours ago. I think I think it was like a military base. There was multiple people that got shot. So, lots of tragedy. There was that incident on the bus, the white girl getting stabbed to death. So it's like, we're just being exposed now very suddenly in the week of 9/11 to all this violence and gore on the timeline. And, as I said, I literally opened up my Twitter app and the first thing I saw was Charlie Kirk getting executed. Lord have mercy. No one's prepared to see anything like that, not even remotely close to anything like that. And this is where we are, where it's just like any moment you can open the app and you just see something that you wish you had never seen. So when I saw that, I was actually sick. I was physically sick. I had to lay down. There's no amount of preparation for something like that. But that's by design. No one was prepared to see these two towers get struck by planes and collapse in on their own footprint either. But the entire world watched it happen. So that's what we're going to be talking about tonight, how this whole event was a mass occult ritual. And this seems like it's like within the realm of like schizo theory. And, I can understand that. I understand why it might be perceived that way. But I'm convinced that with some of the stuff I'll present to you, maybe not all of it will be fully convincing to you, but with some of the stuff I present to you tonight, I'm convinced that it will be more difficult to prove that it was, some kind of coincidence. A lot of these things are impossible coincidences. So then the question is, what was it, right? Like how much planning was behind this? And, so when it comes to psyops like this, it's like this was something that was planned for a very long time. So those who are already initiated into the 9/11 conspiracy, you may already be familiar with, Donald Rumsfeld announcing the missing $2.3 trillion on the day before September 11th. You may be familiar with Lucky Larry Silverstein and this massive insurance heist, right? The dancing Israelis, Tower 7 collapsing in on itself for no reason at all. The U.S. government foreknowledge of these attacks, the lack of evidence of a plane hitting the Pentagon, right? All these things, the controlled demolition, jet fuel doesn't melt steel beams, right? Everyone knows that meme. This was since 2001, we were hearing this, right? Directed energy weapons, like the Judy Wood theory, all this stuff. So, we're not going to be getting into all of that here. At least it won't be our main focus. This stuff is an endless amount of, there's like a seemingly endless amount of content on these things. A lot of it I've seen, and you may have seen repeatedly every year. And I'd rather not, focus on that, because I'd rather direct you towards those who have done monumental work on this stuff, like, Ryan Dawson, James Corbett, Judy Wood, David Ray Griffin. These are the people that you should go to for all the previously mentioned theories. So what we will be covering here tonight falls more within the realm of the metaphysical, and how this horrific event basically transmutated the minds of the populace. The psychological warfare of 9/11 was so effective that it literally incapacitated the majority of the world's population. As we all watched this happen on the world stage, people were glued to their TVs for weeks, just watching these events unfold and trying to learn more about what's going on. And they were doing this through the news. There was no social media then. So you didn't get all these alternative perspectives and people doing their own kind of like private investigation. It was all just whatever was coming out of the TV. That's all you knew. This event was so diabolical, it was so grand, that it literally brought about this alchemical transmutation of the global mind, from 9/11 representing a number of help is on the way, into a number that represents terror and fear and anxiety, right? So it actually transformed that number itself. And that has a lot to do with why we see all these tragic events occurring on this day or around this time. So, my personal initiation into the world of conspiracy was 9/11. I was, I think, 16, 17 years old when it happened, something like that. Yeah, I'm Unk, as they say, as the Zoomers are calling me, Unk. But everyone's got their story. Where were you when 9/11 happened, right? That's all kind of part of the ritual. Personally, I was working, actually. I was, my parents pulled me out of school. So I was supposed to be in high school, but I was working at my dad's factory. And this was in Newark, New Jersey at the time. And so, I was able to see the skyline from there. And, so I had a pretty firsthand experience, not as much as those who were on ground zero, but, I saw the smoke coming out and everything. And this experience deeply impacted me. I discovered at that time that I was more interested in who and why rather than grieving with the rest of the world endlessly, right? Entering this kind of grieving phase and just becoming more malleable to what the media is telling you about it, right? So I became deeply curious about what I saw and why this happened. Watching those towers collapse in on themselves didn't make any sense to me, even as a teenager. I didn't understand really anything about physics, but I knew that didn't make any sense to me. So I became really curious about this thing. I've been following all of the previously mentioned events and their subsequent rabbit holes. And every year around this time, my fascination with 9/11, it resurfaces like clockwork. So for the past, quarter century at this point, since it happened, basically, I've been combing through countless documentaries, websites, online threads, books relating to it, and never have I encountered such damning information regarding the occult nature of this evil mega ritual that was carried out on that traumatic day since I read this book, The Most Dangerous Book in the World, which we're covering here. So, that's a lot of me rambling here, but, all that to say, anyone who's spent any fraction of the time that I've spent studying 9/11 will know that the likelihood of all these events being chalked up to a series of impossible coincidences is beyond absurd. As Michael Hoffman says, coincidence can be summoned. It's a matter of attention and timing. So to introduce this book here, I'm going to read an excerpt from S.K. Bain. I know there's not much to look at on the screen here, but bear with me. I have plenty of visuals that we're going to be exploring tonight. And I will get to your super chats, your donations, if you send them in. I just don't have the alerts on tonight, just so I don't get too distracted and off track, because what I realized was they were interrupting my train of thought, and I was having a really hard time getting back to what I was saying. So this way I will be able to go through them in a more structured way, and I won't miss any of them. So if you're donating, I do see a comment there. I'll try to get to them every 15 minutes or so. This is what S.K. Bain says. What would hard evidence of a 9/11 conspiracy look like? If such exists, it would have explosive potential, the power to ignite a furor among 9/11 truth groups at home and abroad, and among the public at large. Many people already suspect foul play on 9/11, but they don't feel they have proof conclusive enough to warrant action. Others do believe conclusive proof already exists, and new hard evidence would further radicalize their attitudes. Conclusive proof of a 9/11 conspiracy could possess the ability to ignite a global firestorm, to generate unimaginable levels of public distrust of government, to incite civil unrest and calls for revolution. So, still to this day, an overwhelming majority of people would say that we are the ones who are insane for thinking perhaps our beloved rulers lie to us. They'll say this even after, we got out of this mass meme virus psyop, which was, by the way, another prolonged occult ritual. Perhaps these rulers have no problem sacrificing thousands of their own people for institutional power, right? Imagine thinking this and still thinking that that our rulers still are operating within the same moral framework as us. And let me be clear, when I say rulers, I'm not using coded language to say the Jews, right? Yes, obviously Jews are largely overrepresented in positions of power and have tremendous influence within the cryptocracy. It's become somewhat of a meme among noticers that Israel did 9/11. And we know that there is substantial evidence that Mossad was involved along with U.S. intelligence. But to say that the entire operation was planned and carried out solely by Israel is to neglect the cryptocracy as a whole. By cryptocracy, I mean the hidden shadow government, the rulers who are using this magic to reshape reality. You know, we know that the truth is stranger than fiction. 9/11 was a ritual of mass terror with an occult-driven script. And what we are experiencing, even as we speak, with the terror occurring today, is a manifestation of this transmutation of human consciousness through fear and terror, which was wrought about through the ongoing psychological warfare that occurred through this mass gateway ritual. And as we'll see, the script to this occult ritual was written a long time ago. This is again from the most dangerous book in the world. Former U.S. Senator and 9/11 Commission member Bob Kerrey has stated in an online interview that 9/11 is a 30-year-old conspiracy. And although that notion may come as a surprise to some, hopefully not after reading this material, Kerrey may actually be off by only a millennia or two. Michael Hoffman informs us that the process of hermetic cryptocracy is not stagnant. It is engaged in a remarkable project set into motion millennia ago, an operation which has accomplished most, if not all, of its chief goals with masterful dispatch. Synchromistic blogger Mark LeClaire explains on this point, writing, "Any open-minded meditation upon September 11th, 2001 floods the mind with, at first, incomprehensible riddles. The brave seek answers and begin to connect the dots. A shape begins to appear. The seeker can stop with a complete hypothesis. Evil men, shadow men, bankers, and oilmen. One secret world, power. Some seekers go deeper into the woods, satanic goofball cultists and their midnight rituals, Nazi connections. The Fourth Reich steps out from behind the American flag. Not satisfied, a few scrabble onward. At least rudimentary knowledge of occult technology is a must-have. Occult science is that of metaphor, and the big truth of 9/11 is that it is a hierophantic event planned for 2,000 years by the priests of An and Tibet, and altogether inevitable. Beyond this third degree, aspirants court the abyss itself, gaze into the yawning yaw of Yahweh, and cry out, more light. Whether the truth is a conspiracy that's decades old or centuries old or millennia old, the reality is that one blows to smithereens the notion of 9/11 being merely an inside job by the Bush administration. This is what I was saying earlier. The involvement of members of the administration seems a foregone conclusion, but the weight of evidence does not support the idea that they were the masterminds, not by a long shot. Right? So again, it's like, yes, Bush was involved, his administration, Israel was involved, the CIA, right? All these players played a role and, perhaps saw this as an opportunistic event that they could leverage to their advantage in various ways. But to ascribe it to just like one of these groups is to miss the whole point of this ritual. So, okay, and then there's one more paragraph, and then we'll just move on here, and we'll get to the show. September 11th, 2001 not only marked the culmination of a 11-year countdown, but it also marked the initiation of a second 11-year countdown to one of the most significant dates on the occult calendar and one of the most auspicious dates in human history, December 21st, 2012. So that's 12/21/2012, right? This date marks the end of the current age and the beginning of the new age, a perfect date on which to bring into full view their new world order. They have been constructing the foundations of this new world order for decades, centuries, and millennia. And 12/21/2012 is the end of the age. There could be no better time than 2000 plus 13 to fully implement their new order of the ages. Thus, we go one level deeper still with the destruction of the pillars of Hermes, Thoth and Tout, one, invoking Thoth as the Lord of Time and initiating an 11-year countdown to the end of time. Now, obviously, we don't have a date for the quote, end of the age. This is just from, I would imagine he's writing from the perspective of the cryptocracy, who thinks that they can actually accelerate and usher in the end of the age by their own will, right? So we know that that's not possible. So these efforts are all in vain. So, okay, why is this important? Well, because this was, as the cryptocracy sees, the alchemical transmutation of the modern world, or one of them. And in fact, I would say, this brought in probably, a new, I would say, digital age. This kind of like ushered in the digital age at the turn of the millennium. This is also a gateway ritual that ushered in the New World Order. And there's various takes on like what new reality that this ritual brought about. And so I'm not really that interested in like what exactly that is. I think we all know, if you were alive before 9/11, you certainly know, even if you're not a conspiratard, right? If you're not even conspiracy minded at all, you know nothing about this stuff. You buy into the normie narrative wholesale, right? Even that person undeniably knows that the world changed after 9/11. So this was also the most widely observed occult ritual that ever took place on the world stage. Like I said, the world was glued to their televisions for weeks on end after this. Many researchers agree that in some form, this gateway ritual was an entrance into the age of technology, as I said, and it undeniably transformed the world. To know the way in which the cryptocracy understands the world, whether you think the occult magic they are using is real or not doesn't matter. What matters is that they go through painstaking detail in the way that they invoke symbolism, numerology, Babylonian mystery religion, and predictive programming, which we saw in the intro there. And this is what Hoffman calls the revelation of the method in psychological warfare. So as we explore some of these occult synchronicities, keep in mind that these dark occultists, the cryptocracy, that is our real hidden rulers, and they do not have any power over us as Christians. So there's nothing to fear. And so with that said, let's get into the schizo stuff here. This is what we're all here for, right? So, as we were looking at there, that's the Kabbalistic tree of life with the two pillars. So we're going to look into like all this tower symbology here. Here's why is it showing Aleister Crowley? Well, he plays a major role in all this because the cryptocracy heavily draws on Crowleyan magic. So there's a lot of that. You'll see in his numerology how that plays out. I mean, this stuff, like, again, I'm not going to be able to even cover it all because in great detail, I mean, down to the flight numbers, the dates, all this stuff is intertwined. It's like a big web. So it's really hard to untangle this stuff. So yeah, as you see, the 77th floor of the tower, like people even get into the measurements of the buildings and the, all this stuff that it's like, yes, there is getting too in the weeds with this stuff. And if you look too deep, you probably can make connections that maybe weren't even intended. But I mean, we'll see that there's some undeniable stuff here. This is from Michael Hoffman, his book, Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare. I think we are farmed, Charles Fort said of humanity. It was Fort who also suggested that man deliberately invented the dogma of materialism in order to shield himself from the evidence of what was being done to him by means of psycho-spiritual warfare methods hyped by coincidence, symbolism, and ritual. So I like that term psycho-spiritual warfare because this, when we talk about psychological warfare, what we're really talking about is spiritual warfare. It's just manifest in the psychological. It's kind of like they're both linked, right? So, this is what we're looking at here. I mean, just like horrific. I mean, imagine like watching this and having no clue what's going on, and that two planes did that. So, you know, again, the flight numbers, we're going to see that there's, again, I don't have everything like super organized here, but, you know, if you want to get into the flight numbers, there's that. Again, please, you know, if there's stuff that you really want me to like emphasize more or explore further, let me know with a super chat. That's going to be the best way that I'll be able to see it, because I'm looking at the screen here. I'm not reading the chat constantly. So, you know, I will get to the super chats. Actually, let me just check them right now just to make sure. Yeah, okay. So, oh, we're going to have this image thing happening here. No. Okay, I might have to refresh this. Not sure why it's, sorry about this, guys. One sec. All right, let's do this. Hang tight there. Okay, let me open a new one. Present. This is amateur presentation, so I don't know why these images aren't some of these images just like aren't loading for whatever reason. Maybe I'll just do this because it's showing here. Sorry guys. Bear with me. Okay, there we go. There we go. I think we got it. All right, we're going to get into some good stuff here. Okay. Yeah, let me just do this. My apologies. Okay. So, all right, I just got to adjust the screen now. Okay. Let's move that. Okay, I think we got it now. We good? Kind of, yeah, it's whatever. All right, so this all kind of started with, well, I think the book started around this event where, you know, he's describing the planes. So, you know, he's describing the flight numbers and what happened here. And then I think a good way to frame this is with George Bush at the public school, where it was an elementary school in, I believe, Pensacola, Florida. So this is off the top of my head. I should probably just read from the text here, but it was in Pensacola, Florida, which is a location that has a lot of synchronicities as well. Muhammad Atta did his flight training there. It was Jeb Bush. Jeb Bush was the governor there. So that's just a couple. I think there's some others. And so basically, the first plane hit when Bush was on his way there. And actually, you know, there's a video, so maybe I'll just play the video here. So, and as we know, actually, before we get to that, as we know, just a little bit of background for those who don't know. George Bush was a member of the Skull and Bones, Bush Jr., that is. Well, you know, his whole family line, I believe, he comes from a line of bonesmen. So there he is as a bonesman in Yale. And here he is admitting to being a bonesman. Not that we need him to, but.
You were both in Skull and Bones, the secret society.
It's so secret we can't talk about it.
What does that mean for America? The conspiracy theorists are going to go wild.
I'm sure they are. I don't know. I haven't seen the web.
Number 322?
Yeah, nothing. Yeah. Okay. So he's in this elementary school. The first plane hits. This is kind of wild, guys. I want you to know this, that on his way to the school, he was informed that the first plane hit. Instead of turning around and saying, we have a national crisis on our hands, I need to get back to the, I need to like basically regroup, get back to the Oval Office, whatever. This is a national crisis. He goes through with going to the school. So he shows up. He right here as he's sitting here reading this book, he knows that a plane has hit the World Trade Center. So there's the famous photo of him. This is him being informed that the second plane has hit. So obviously, this has become a meme now. It's been memed to oblivion, and people kind of like forget the context. That's kind of the power of like mimetic warfare, I guess. Like you tend to like forget the original context of the meme, or it becomes irrelevant. But this is actually him learning that the second plane hit, which is right here. And so what does he do? Well, we'll see here. So actually, we're going to see that exact photo happens here in the video.
It's really exciting for me to be here. I want to thank Miss Daniels for being a teacher. I want to thank Gwen for being a principal. And I want to thank you all for practicing reading so much. It's really important.
And just a side note here. S.K. Bain mentioned something that, and this may be an example of like you may be reading too far into it. There was, I think, a few instances of that where I was like, that seems a little bit of a stretch. But he mentions that, the occultists put great importance on colors and race too. And so the fact that he was like in this black elementary school, what the author was saying was that the black kids like are symbolic of the sacrificial offering, the sacrifice, the burnt offering of the people burning in the World Trade Center as this is happening. So it's like, maybe make what you want of that, I guess. But anyway, why can't this play? There we go.
And this morning we do have a lesson that we will read with you, read for you.
Good.
And it's lesson 60 of our SRA reading program.
So, and you might be wondering, like, why are we watching this? And I'll just go back to this because the book they're reading is called The Pet Goat. I failed to mention that. There's going to be a lot of that tonight. The book is called The Pet Goat, right? Okay, so you have a bonesman who's present as this mass ritual is underway in this school where these children are about to read in a very ritualistic way the passages from this book, The Pet Goat. So, all right, I'm just going to actually let this play through, and then I'll
Are you ready, my butterflies? Yes. LLP position, eyes on me.
Okay, are you ready, my butterflies? You guys know what butterflies represents, right? That's the symbol for MK Ultra. Maybe a coincidence, maybe.
1, 2, 3. Get ready to read all the words on this page without making a mistake. Read this word the fast way. Get ready.
Park.
Yes, park. What do these two letters say?
R.
Yes, R. Sound it out. Get ready.
Park.
What word?
Park.
Yes, park. What do these two letters say?
R.
Yes, pick your reader up from under your seat. Open your book up to lesson.
Okay, so here comes the announcement that the second plane just hit. There's that famous photo. Now the ritual has commenced, right?
Open your book up to lesson
just before they start reading.
60 on page 153.
So it's like the question is, why does he go through with this? You should get up and be like, I gotta go. There's a national crisis.
Thank you. Everybody touch the title of your story. Fingers under the title. Get ready to read the title, The Fast Way. We're waiting for one member.
So we're reading the title, The Pet Goat.
Okay. Thank you. Fingers under the title of the story. Get ready.
The pet goat.
Yes, the pet goat. Fingers under the first word of the story. Get ready to read the story the fast way. Get ready.
A girl had a pet goat.
Go on.
She liked to go running with her pet goat.
Go on.
Okay, I'm gonna pause it for a sec.
Play with her tail.
Try to get.
Because there's something I want to read from the book here. Let me just pull it up. Sorry, one sec here. So this is he does a whole chapter called "The Pet Goat," and it starts with a quote from Michael Hoffman. He quotes Michael Hoffman quite a bit in the book. You can tell he's a huge fan of Michael Hoffman, understandably. It says, "In the end, what we have is a highly symbolic ritual working broadcast to millions of people, a satanic inversion, a black mass where the pews are filled with the entire nation and through which humanity is brutalized and debased." So he's calling this Act 2. I kind of skipped Act 1. We're going to get back to it. Act 1 is describing the whole script and the occult nature of this stuff. So we're going to kind of like mix that in here. So he says, on the morning of September 11th, 2001, President Bush waits outside Emma E. Booker Elementary School in Sarasota, Florida, by his own account on 2 separate occasions, no less. He says he sees Flight 11 hurtle through clear skies, slam into the North Tower, then remarks, "There's one terrible pilot." Minutes later, Bush sits before a group of predominantly African-American second-grade school children listening to a recitation of The Pet Goat when the Chief of Staff Andrew Card whispers in his ear, okay, so we just saw that. He said a second plane hit the second tower. America is under attack. Bush continues to sit in front of the class listening to a reading for an additional 7 minutes. Okay. So, and he asked the same question. Why did Bush sit there for a full 7 minutes after being told that America is under attack? He would later claim in his own book that he didn't want to alarm the children by getting up abruptly from their reading. A bit weak, but fair enough. And, that was like like a lot of the narrative that they crafted was just like playing to emotions and stuff. It's like, oh, he didn't want to startle the children. But, the kids are about to see this towering inferno of people, burning and jumping out windows and stuff on the TV, right? It's like, he didn't want to get up because he might have startled them. In the end, however, these may be about the only things concerning Bush's presence in Sarasota on that fateful day that could potentially be explained away. So the pet goat black mass in paradise, he calls it. And this is from Aleister Crowley. Let him say, I read this book that I may study the nature of my deity, that further knowledge of him may inspire me with deeper devotion to him. And he's talking about Satan, obviously. Maybe what I'll do is this. Sorry, I should have been sharing this earlier, but what I'm going to do is share the text here so we can read together. Is that going to work? Hopefully it works. Maybe not. I'll try it again one more time. I feel like I'm going to crash my computer if I do too much. Okay, let's try this again. Well, maybe it's not going to work. Okay, never mind, guys. You're going to have to look at the slides here. My bad. I don't want to do too much. If I break this, it's just going to... Okay. When Anton LaVey published his Satanic Bible in 1969, he wrote that a black mass is essentially a parody of the religious service of the Roman Catholic Church, but can be loosely applied to a satire on any religious ceremony. He went on in Satanic Rituals to present it as the most representatively satanic ritual in the book. A satirical ceremony, a commander-in-chief that wouldn't leave his seat until the reading of a story about a pet goat was completed, during which the time hundreds of his fellow Americans were in harm's way, many of them meeting horrific ends as they burned alive or plunged to their death from the towers. Conjuring the image of the tower, the tarot card, variously referred to as the devil's house, the house of the damned and inferno or hell, all taking place in Paradise, the city of Sarasota's unofficial yet widely used and acknowledged nickname. Well, how about that? Yeah, so there you go. There's another synchronicity with Sarasota. It's nicknamed Paradise. So then he talks about Paradise Lost and, Dante, Satan's fall from heaven. Another Michael Hoffman quote: if Chronos Saturn's destroyed divine Eden, Saturn being the force of time, decay, and progress of matter, man will recreate a true Thelemy, a better Eden than God. And that, in sum, is the Masonic cover story that maintains Kashet to this day. Okay, so here, this is what I wanted to read. Actually, let me go to the slides here. Sorry. Again, I know I'm scattered here. There's one thing I wanted to play out here, and this will explain a lot of this ritual.
And get ready from the beginning of that sentence. Get ready.
She played with her goat in her house.
Go on.
She played with her goat in her yard.
Good job. Go on.
And there's something about the tapping. He actually mentions the tapping. He calls it a child's guide to the Luciferian doctrine. So he explains what this book is about. Ostensibly a children's story about a girl and her goat, right? So the kids right now, they're saying like she plays with her goat in the house. She plays with a goat in her yard. The pet goat was in reality a strategically employed device used to introduce this key occult element into the 9/11 mega ritual. Yet it is more than this. A deeper reading of the text reveals that this children's story is an allegory of the Luciferian doctrine. The father is an overbearing hyper-authoritarian, and the goat, whose initial poor behavior is, in broad context, relatively benign, saves the day. The goat's aggressive behavior and destructive tendencies at first appear problematic, but in the end render the goat uniquely qualified to serve as savior. The all-devouring is not the bad guy after all. It is Lucifer, the light bearer, who seeks to set humanity free. And so you'll hear them say in this chant,
But the goat did some things that made the girls mad.
Let's clean that up. Get ready. Start with but. Get ready.
But the goat did some.
Go on.
The goat ate.
Try that again. Get ready.
He ate cans and he
so this is unruly goat. He's eating cans and everything, right?
ate.
Word said. Try that again. On. Sounded.
I think it's not in this video what I was looking for. That's why I let it play for so long. But there's a longer video where you can see the full 7 minutes. And eventually, they progress in the story and they start chanting, "The goat must go out. The goat must go out." And that is like a ritualistic chant for this gateway ritual. That it's the age of Lucifer, the Enlightenment, right, is like on its way out, and they're ushering in this new age, right? So you can see here, there's the tarot card for the devil, who is a goat. This is Baphomet, right? So there's the Baphomet pose, and this relates to current events actually, because we saw in that that very unfortunate and tragic stabbing of the Ukrainian girl on the bus, that her murderer was posed like this. I'm going to try to find an image of it so you can see, because people are surprised by this. I didn't have this ready, so give me 1 second. I'll see if I can get an image of it. Yeah, here we go. So if you look at the position, that's the Baphomet position. He's posing as Baphomet. Maybe that's coincidence. I mean, you can decide, but I thought that was interesting that he's making the Baphomet pose, right? And it's basically a blood sacrifice, because he stabs her in the neck and she bleeds out. Again, this stuff is very dark, right? But it's like, we're being like bombarded with this stuff every day if you're online. There it is again. That's like the famous image. I mean, I just searched for it, and this is like the image that, again, this psychological warfare is being programmed into us, this pose, right? So, that's what we're seeing here. That's the Baphomet pose, right? And this is from Crowley's book called Magic. It's this serpent Satan is not only the enemy of man, but he who made gods for our race. Again, like, I don't have to explain that Crowley, this is all just like demonic nonsense, right? Knowing good and evil, he bade know thyself and taught initiation. He is the devil of the book of Thoth, and his emblem is Baphomet, the androgyny, who is the hieroglyph of arcane perfection. He is therefore life and love. Lord of mercy. But moreover, his letter is Ion, the eye, right? The all-seeing eye. So that he is light. And his zodiacal image is Copernicus, that leaping goat whose attribute is liberty. All right, we're going to get more into that, the concept of liberty, right? These concepts that like shaped America and its symbology. Another one, it's interesting, he wrote this book and he titled it The Book of Lies. The sublime and supreme septenary in its mature magical manifestation through matter, 7. Okay, so there's the number 7. The septenary, 11. Okay, there's the number 11. The magical number, 77. All right, so you have American Airlines Flight 77 was I believe the second plane that hit. And then you have AA, which is, that also has like a numerical code of 1, so 11. The manifestation, therefore, of the septenary through matter, because 77 is written in Hebrew, Ayin, Zion, or Oz, and he goat, the symbol of matter, Copernicus, the devil of the tarot, which is the picture of the goat of the Sabbath upon the altar, worshipped by 2 other devils, male and female. Right. So there's the merging of opposites that you see in the symbology here of the towers, of the pillars. And so these slides are all out of order, man. But, actually this was the difficulty in this is like, I would not be able to put together like a structured presentation without taking months to do it, because this stuff is all this tangled web, right? So all of this intersects. I don't know a great presentation. Even S.K. Bain in his book, like, kind of was all over the place with how he presented it. It's very schizo. That doesn't mean it's not true, but so here's 77, right? You have 11 story or 1100 or I'm sorry, 110 stories, so 11 there. I mean, look, you can get into these numbers all day, but you have the male and female as they're represented in occult imagery. And then relating numbers in terms of qualities rather than quantities, the basic operation is a symbolic interpretation of the 9/11 event in terms of the reduction. Adding the digits of any number eventually reduces it to a single essential digit. That's what this is doing here. So it's saying, like, it was flight 11 that hit the first tower, which had 110 stories, and then it was flight 175, which is also a Crowleyan number, because he wrote this, I forget what it was called, Libri or something, 175 was the name of the book. So he puts all this like esoteric symbology into the number 175, and the plane that hit was United Airlines 175. Okay, so again, United, all the names too have like an esoteric meaning. So like United Airlines was the second plane that hit the second tower, thus beginning the collapse of these 2 towers. And it's like he describes the planes as like sacrificial vessels that hit these satanic altars that were the pillars or the towers in this case. And so these numbers break down, right, into like 2 and 4, 3, so 2, 3, and 4. So that this was Tower 7, which had 93 floors. So these are all like reductions, right? Gematria. So this is explaining Gematria. It's the related practice of assigning numerical values to letters and words in Kabbalah. So the Kabbalists place great emphasis on these numbers. They may seem schizophrenic as you look at this, but that's just the nature of this Kabbalistic numerology. All these numbers have a significance. They're very important. When applied to the flight numbers of 9/11, note the sequence that emerges in both steps. And so again, the plane United Airlines 175, that word united represents like the uniting of the opposing forces of male and female as they're represented in these pillars. And I'm just going to skip ahead to a slide that I have here. The form of the Twin Towers in 11, right? So even the towers themselves are a formation of the number 11, reflects the dual pillar theme seen in many esoteric traditions. The pillars represent paths of ascension to higher consciousness. In the World Trade Center complex, Tower 1 is the solar masculine pillar. Note the large antenna, right? So I know we're not looking at the right picture here, but I'll show it in the next slide. But yeah, there's the one tower has a big antenna. So that represents the masculine. And then Tower 2 is the lunar, the feminine pillar. The middle path, the synthesis between the pillars, is the way to ultimate unity consciousness, right? So again, the second plane, United Airlines, Flight 172, which, again, we're going to look into that shortly here. Building 7, the third building to collapse that day, is assigned the middle position here. Note that the sum of the building's numbers 1 + 2 + 7 = 10 equals the number of Sephiroth or divine spheres on the Kabbalistic tree of life seen below. Okay, so we're looking at it here. World Trade Center 7 was AKA the Solomon Bros building after its owners. Okay, that has great significance in Masonic tradition, because you'll know that Freemasonry is centered on the tradition of, at least the operative Freemasonry. Well, both of them. I mean, this is just like a theme in Freemasonry of like Solomon, right? And so, in Francis Bacon's New Atlantis, he describes this secret society that's called the Solomon House, right? So it just so happens that the World Trade Center 7 was named after the Solomon brothers, as they called it, the Solomon Building. Okay. So again, this is like stuff that you don't see this being discussed, right? Everyone talks about, oh, what about Tower 7, right? It's like kind of like, at this point, like the normie conspiracy take is like, oh, just Google Tower 7 kind of thing, right? Like, why did Tower 7 fall? It's like, we've been talking about this for 25 years. This is like the esoteric nature of this event, right? The info on the slides aren't in front. Oh yeah, sorry about that. Yeah, I know. I know it's like kind of cropped. Thanks for pointing that out, Pavel. Yeah, I'm just sorry. Let me catch up on chat here. I'm trying to be better at reading the chat. I'm like kind of focused on the text here. Like I said, if you wanted to like dive further into any of this stuff, or you just wanted to comment or ask a question or anything, best way to do that is through Super Chat. I want to make sure I'm not missing any Super Chats. So, okay, let's continue here. And then these are all the symbolic representations of these towers. There's not even all of them, right? It's just some of the more notable ones. So again, you have the tarot of the high priestess. There's Joaquin and Boaz pillars that you also see in the Masonic temples and the Masonic imagery. Okay, there's always a light or something that's representing the all-seeing eye, or some kind of like Egyptian deity, whether it's like Horus or something. You have the towers or the pillars of Hermes, right? So another like kind of Kabbalistic entity like this, probably, and actually in Masonic tradition as well, it's like represented as the Shekinah. So I talk about this a lot in my work. The Shekinah is representative of the merging of opposites. It's like, it's a female deity that is united. It's unified through the opposing forces of male and female. So there's like a lot of cosmology and stuff like related to this, but we won't get too into that. And then, the Twin Towers, right? Which happen to frame a sunset. So if you're looking at if you're looking at the sky from that perspective, I believe that's from if I'm getting this correctly, that is from the Hudson. So if you're looking at the Twin Towers from the Hudson, you're going to see the sunset framed between the towers. The same way that you see the sun or the all-seeing eye or the Shekinah or whatever, this goddess framed between the two pillars. So here's in Thelema, it's also used, the Thelemic pillars, Thelemic altar. Okay, so this is what Crowleyite LARPers are doing when they do their little rituals. They have these two pillars. This, I think I actually even found this image on Etsy. So it's like, there's people on Etsy like selling all this witchcraft garbage. And by the way, just, to kind of tie in current events, there was a post going around. I posted it myself as well, that there were all these leftoids were hiring witches on Etsy to cast a hex on Charlie Kirk days prior to the assassination. Now, I don't, does that do Etsy witches have any power in reality? I don't know, probably not, but just, an interesting note there. So here above the, as part of the arch over the two pillars, you have the Crowleyan creed, the satanic creed, do what thou wilt shall be the whole of the law. So that's an inversion of, like the Christian, the Christian pursuit of doing God's will on earth, right? So this is the law of liberty. Again, we see this theme of liberty, right? Wings, liberty. We're going to see all these images resurface throughout this examination. So again, in these esoteric images, you see the two pillars there. Also, in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings, the two towers are Orthanc and Minas Morgul, serving both as physical locations and as symbols of opposing dark powers active during the War of the Ring. And now, I'm quite I would say, a longtime Lord of the Rings fan. So I know, and you may know also, that the Eye of Sauron was added by Peter Jackson in the movies. He placed it on top of I believe it was the Tower of Orthanc. It doesn't matter, but I just found that interesting that he placed basically this all-seeing eye on top of these two towers, right? But even in Tolkien's work, the pillars represent, like the two towers represent like these opposing forces basically of evil, like these two variations of evil. And Tolkien himself actually, do I have a slide on this? No. But Tolkien himself, we know that he was a Catholic, right? He was like he's kind of perceived as like this great Christian writer. He is a great Christian writer. But there's rumors that he may have been involved in some occult circles. One of his best friends, who was in the what's called the Inklings. So there was this kind of like group that everyone knows him and C.S. Lewis were tight, but there was a third member of the Inklings. His name was Charles. Was it Charles Williams? I'm blanking on his name. Charles Williams, I think. If someone knows in chat, let me know. And he was a member of the Golden Dawn, which is Crowley's secret society. So they were Thelemites. And that this was Tolkien's great friend, longtime friend. So it's like he at least kind of maybe had some knowledge of this stuff, whether it was direct or indirect, secondhand or something. And there you see this is Masonic imagery here. So again, same thing, right? It's kind of redundant. Like we've all seen this stuff. Where are we going here? I've already kind of like lost the flow of this. So we're entering the stage of this is going to be all over the place. But let's get into this. Okay, let's go back to the towers here. Okay, so the central numbers, 93 and 77. Okay, so Flight 11 struck floor 93 of Tower 1, right? And then Flight 175 struck floor 77 of Tower 2. The path of ascent, 93, opens through balance of the two pillars when we balance the values between the two towers. So this is getting a little bit into like seemingly like reading into it, but again, these numbers are very significant, and when you break them down, they happen to have occult significance, right? And you can say that like, well, every number has occult significance. Well, maybe like, I mean, the thing is like this stuff, it has a formula, right? So like, the way that the numbers break down and are reduced are an occult formula. They're a Crowleyan formula. So again, it's the reduction. Thus, all of the World Trade Center buildings are associated with 93 ascension, while the Pentagon is with 77 falling short. And we're going to get into the Pentagon too. So at least for this part, I want to focus on like the buildings and stuff and some of the architecture, because there's some really interesting stuff. Sorry, let me just... Let me fix the screen for you guys. You guys know it's like kind of getting cut off here, so hopefully that's a little better. Something's going to get cut off. Let me see if I can fix this. Okay. Yeah, there we go. Okay. The Shekinah is the, let me see this. The Shekinah is the holy goddess of Israel. She is not evil. She is God's bride. Lilith is the evil one, not the Shekinah. Okay, I'm kind of offended. Well, yeah. If you're practicing the Jewish religion, I mean, I think you're probably going to be offended by a lot of this. I don't know what to tell you. I'm aware that that's what it's like represented, but yeah, we won't get like too into that. I mean, I don't want to get too off track, but I'm not like, yeah, okay, you can leave, man. That's I'm sounding like Candace Owens. Candace Owens wishes that she knew this kind of stuff. Okay, see you, man. I literally don't care. Okay, meanings. 11. So the number 11, the great magical number, the magic force itself, signaling number to identify fellow occultists, right? So again, this stuff, like, it seems like schizo nonsense to us, but that's an important point, that it's like, at the very least, signaling to other occultists that there's a ritual occurring. The great work, in quotes, so the great work is, this occult reference, of synthesis between opposing forces. That's, again, the Shekinah that guy just got all upset about. Yet also duality, the fall oppositional mentality. A mystic number of Venus, 175. Okay, so Liber 175, this is the book by Aleister Crowley, which concerns uniting oneself to a deity by devotion, and that deity is Satan. So that's the name of his book. Again, Flight 175 was the one that hit the second tower. The representation of the feminine deity, or Venus, it reduces to 13. So the equivalent to, I don't even know what that says. Oh, we do have super chats
donated $5 through super chat. Late to the stream, but glad I caught you. Sorry to interrupt. Hey Piggy incoming.
Yes, I'm quite okay with Pay Piggy interruptions. Thank you, man. I appreciate you. Welcome on in, man. You just missed a lot of rambling, basically, and we're kind of just getting into the meat here. But thank you for the super chat. I thought I had it disabled on the screen, but I don't. So there you go, guys. It's open season. Bombard me with interruptions. So, okay, I didn't cover all this. See, I just got sidetracked. I got distracted. Okay. 93. 93 represents ascension out of ego, duality to love, will, unity, consciousness. From 9, the number of ego, towards 3, the number of the divine union. Okay, again, Shekinah, divine union. In Greek, Gematria, thelema, will. equals 93. Agape love equals 93. 93 is equivalent to 777, both reducing to 3. 777 represents the human in a state of thoughts, emotions, and actions elevated to union with the higher will. Again, this is all Crowleyan nonsense, but this is what the cryptocracy believes is these numbers and symbols that they think can shape reality. And so 77, falling short, failure to achieve higher consciousness, e.g. one short of 78. Okay. One short of 78 cards in the tarot. Okay. Whatever. 77 out of 777 equals unity of intellect and egoic will, but lacking compassion.
Do you think that Helena and Charlie's deaths could be connected to the towers in some way through the feminine and masculine aspects, considering their deaths were so close to today?
Yes, thank you for the $5. I actually I posted about that in a tweet. Let me see if I can pull it up. I posted exactly that. And again, you could probably say I'm reading into that too much, but again, when you know about this stuff, it's like there is a likelihood that that's what's occurring. And then the question is like, well, who's behind it, right? Like who made that maniac like stab that girl, or like it's like, dude, look at how orchestrated this stuff is. I mean, it's really not that hard to imagine. The whole thing is psychological warfare, right? So it's like it's on a world stage. Everyone knows that these things are operating on a world stage, and it's going to flood into everyone's feed and everyone's consciousness. So there's a lot at stake here. Look at how the whole world is talking about it. I'm sorry, I'm just scrolling my timeline. I'm going to try to find this comment, and then I'll pull it up here. Okay, here it is. Okay, so here is my comment on exactly that. I said, and this was in. Sorry to show these graphic images. I hate to look at that again, but both bled out their necks. We are witnessing a mass blood sacrifice ritual. This is what I said earlier. And then this guy goes, "Pardon me, what makes this a ritual?" And I said, "There's blood from the neck flowing out, right? So that's like how the how these blood sacrifices would be carried out, was through the slitting of the throat of the animal. There's a male and a female, as you said there. So that's the emerging of opposites. One was a Zionist, one was Ukrainian. This happened on the week of 9/11. Yo, Volturo, let's go, man. Thank you, bro.
Volturo just donated a $50 gem. At this point, the propaganda spreads itself.
Yeah, exactly. Yo, thank you for the epic 50, man. That's a fat stack. Thank you so much, my dude. That's exactly it. It's like, this is on like autopilot now, this stuff. Like, you don't even need to leverage mass media and all these like television networks and stuff. Like, this all just gets flooded into the feed. They know exactly the kind of imagery that invokes these emotions and this psychological warfare that is very powerful and becomes part of the greater mass discourse that's occurring for weeks sometimes. And look at what just happened. Is anyone talking about the stabbing anymore? No, we're talking about this other sacrifice, or whatever you want to call it. And then the question is like, well, who was he sacrificed to? Or like, what was it a sacrifice of? It's like, well, we don't have enough information. You want to know the kind of like occult take on this? This is mine. This is just from what I have observed so far. I don't know if there's any, I don't know if there's any actuality to this stuff, but there are some pretty startling, synchronicities. So this all happened on the week of 9/11 mass ritual. Charlie's last word before he was shot was violence. Everyone watched both of them bleed out on the world stage. So that's powerful as well. So again, like, think about like this fiery inferno of the two pillars that were burning, and we're watching this like burnt offering happening, and what that did to the consciousness of everyone that saw it happen. It traumatized that. It was like a mass traumatizing ritual, right? A terror ritual. That's what we're experiencing now with all this terror. And, I said this earlier when I started the stream, like this attack on this assassination of Charlie, I learned about it I literally pulled my phone out of my pocket and just impulsively clicked on the X app. And I'm not even exaggerating, it was the first thing that came up on my feed. It was almost like it just like put itself in front of me, like magically or something. And there was no word, like I don't even remember if there was words. I just clicked the video. So basically the way that I found out about this was I saw the close-up video that everyone says don't watch, and that I'll say don't watch if you haven't seen it. Consider yourself blessed if you haven't seen it, because it is very traumatic to see it. I was traumatized. Like I actually felt sick. I physically felt sick and I had to lay down. I like stopped what I was doing. I was in the middle of something and I had to stop what I was doing to lay down because I felt ill. And that's the power of this stuff. It's like, I didn't ask to see that. If I had the option to see it, I wouldn't have even have opted in. But because I pulled out my phone and I opened this app, I subjected myself to the psychological warfare that occurs nonstop on this app. And it's being carried out by independent people. Like, I mean, this stuff, like there's actually, all these intelligence assets and everything that are kind of LARPing as like these independent accounts and stuff. Like, you don't know who these people are. A lot of them are connected in various ways to other, to intelligence or to, the occult or something, you have no idea, right? So there's a lot of that happening here and it's like out of control. So in many ways, the psychological warfare happening here is unprecedented, right? Again, you don't have to leverage like mass media anymore and like get all like write these scripts for all these pundits on the TV. You just like put these images out into the world and let the algorithm do its work. So yeah, good questions there. That's just my take. And again, that might change. Like, I probably wouldn't have even looked into it that much if it wasn't the week of 9/11. So I think that like what we're talking about here does play a role because of this, like, this kind of metaphysical transformation that happened around this time. And again, the dates matter too. The dates are important. This is the Egyptian New Year on the Coptic calendar. September 11th starts the new year. And September 11th was, ushering in a new millennium. So it was like setting the precedence for this time of year being like a, terror season. Time for all these Talmudic psyops. And it's like, I feel like even talking about this in this way, like it might come off as like insensitive. Like I don't want it to like look like that. I mean, this is just because my mind was here as I was like going through this material, but I was deeply, and I still am like deeply, very, I'm still processing like what I saw and like the fact that it was Charlie Kirk and what it, all these implications. So it's like, I'm still processing this stuff, right? As we all are together. But, as I said earlier, I want to know, I want answers. My initial thing is like, who did it and why? And what's the point of this, right? Like there's something happening here and we need to figure this out. So I almost immediately switch into like investigative mode with this stuff. So it seems like I'm unsympathetic, but I'm like processing that all internally. And my way of kind of like coping, I guess, is to like do these deep dives into like what's going on. Let's find this guy. Who's he connected to? All this stuff, right? So let's go back to the schizo magic here. Oh my goodness, Volturo.
Volturo just donated a $50 gem. Considering the amount of censorship online, people need to realize that everything that is on the internet is only allowed to exist because it mainly serves the purpose of pushing the agenda further. Mass sip.
Exactly, mass sip. Dude, you're going for broke, man. Yeah, top pay piggy. I don't know if anyone's going to dethrone you as the top pay piggy for tonight. Thank you so much, man. That's incredible support. And again, I really appreciate it because I anticipate this video is going to be demonetized after this stream. and maybe even my entire channel or something. I have no idea. So your support is incredible. It's very beneficial to me in being able to continue this work. So thank you so much, man. And if you are tuned in, like I'll do a little bit of like, I'm not going to like interrupt with commercials. I don't have any sponsors or anything like that. I don't do affiliates. I just promote my own work. So if you want to support my efforts here, I would say the best way to support my work is on Substack for $9 a month, because you get a lot in return instead of just getting a spinning gem on the screen, which I also very much appreciate, especially those fat gems. But on Substack, you're going to get a lot in return. You'll get access to the book club, exclusive channels on Discord. I've got a lot in the works behind the scenes for membership programs. So, I like to try to return the support. So I do put a lot of effort into like exclusive content and stuff like that. So, that there's a lot on Substack. I've been publishing on there for 3 years. I have a huge archive of my work there. A lot of it is behind the paywall, so you get access to all that. But lately, I mean, we've been doing it like this lately. This is how we've been doing these live deep dives. So I'm really enjoying this. So I appreciate you guys supporting this stuff, because this is a lot less stressful for me than writing and publishing, on articles and stuff. And I think it's more fun. Bro,
Vultru donated $10 through Super Chat. Will subscribe to your Substack, brother.
Thank you, man. Thank you, bro. I that wasn't saying it to you. I'm just like, if you do like to the others, if you don't want to drop $50 or something, like, yeah, go over on there. But yeah, thank you, man. I appreciate all the support, brother. Thank you so much, man. So, okay. Best interruption ever, I would say. I'm going to read here another excerpt from Michael Hoffman. Never allow the luxury of assuming that because the dead and deadening scenery of the American city of dreadful night is so utterly devoid of mystery, so thoroughly flat-footed, sterile and infantile, so burdened with the illusory gloss of baseball, hot dogs, apple pie, and Chevrolet, that it is somehow outside the psychosexual domain. The eternal pagan psychodrama is escalated under these modern conditions precisely because sorcery is not what 20th century man can accept as real. This kind of writing makes me feel extremely incompetent, by the way, which is relevant to what I was just saying. That's just a beautiful piece of writing there. So yeah, that's from Michael Hoffman. And it relates to the comment that you had there, Volturo, that the amount of censorship online, people need to realize that the internet is a weapon. It was literally created by DARPA, so it's a military weapon. This is a little bit out of context, but I wanted to add this in. This, I would say, this slide should go towards like where we were talking about George Bush, but it just so happened that in 2000, so it relates to this alchemical transformation of the new millennium, where it was George Bush's first years in presidency, and the Republican Party changed their logo. Many of you probably don't even know this happened. So they what did they change? Not the elephant. They flipped the stars upside down. This is a real thing that happened. And Mother Jones, of all publications, covered this and said, is there satanic symbolism in the GOP's logo? This is an excerpt from that article. The GOP's stars weren't always upside down. Some say that the change occurred around 2000. When I called up the RNC to ask about the logo's history, staffers invariably asked, we'll have to get back to you on that, and never did. Huh, that's interesting, said one, who clearly hadn't noticed Satan hiding in plain view. I have a feeling some neo-pagan democratic designed this logo, wrote a commenter on the conservative website Free Republic. Besides the like-minded rants that the design is a huge slap in the grand old party's face, some online chat room goers. See, this is 2000, right? Or I guess 2008. before social media, they were just chat room goers, speculated that the inverted stars are linked to secret society symbolism. No kidding. It's a little bit more than that, I would say. That's the pentagram. Baphomet. Okay, where were we here? Again, we're in scattered territory here, guys, so bear with me. We're going to get more into the architecture and the buildings, because there's some other stuff I want to cover here. This is another kind of out of place slide. I didn't know where to put this, but more of this symbology of the tarot. So you have the towering inferno, you have the hanged man, and the infamous falling man. This was another means of psychological warfare. This image that became very popular at the time. It was on all the newspapers. This falling man, he's like an anon. He's I don't think we know who he is. Maybe we do now. I don't even remember. I don't know if we have his identity, but at the time no one knew who this was. And I think we do. I think he was working at a restaurant. Yeah, that's right. He was a waiter or something at one of the restaurants. We do know who he is. Anyway, that pose, right? Of the hanged man. Now, maybe if you're, you want to let's put on our coincidence theory hats, right? Maybe that was just like in the moment the natural pose that he made as he was falling, and it has nothing to do with the hanged man. But with all these things we're looking at, and how planned out this was, and how much these symbols were important to the cryptocracy, and how they plotted all the numerology and everything, it's like it kind of like raises the bar of expectation for this to be not mere coincidence, right? So I take this stuff within context. If this were just like a random thing that happened, like it was a random event and some guy jumped out the window and that's the pose he made, and it wasn't tied to like a whole ritual, then you would just maybe say, then there's a higher probability it's a coincidence, right? But the fact of the context is that this was an occult ritual. So then you look at something like this and it's like, well, maybe that was planned. Now it's kind of crazy that there was a guy that literally, suicided and thought to do that. So yeah, I recognize that it's like, well, why would this guy even be thinking about a tarot card as he's plunging to his death? Who knows, man? Who knows? There's no, that's where you don't want to get too schizo about this stuff. The Trident of Poseidon. Okay. These are the, I guess what you'd call the lattices or something, the scaffolding of the World Trade Center. And this was a memorial after, it's in Manhattan. You can see this memorial. I think they moved this and placed it across the Hudson, it looks like. And so, they erected these two pitchforks. Now, this is, okay. I think this is another out of place slide. The Statue of Liberty. Okay. So we're going to get into the Statue of Liberty here too. I also have stuff about the Pentagon. I think I'm getting a little ahead of myself here, but again, this stuff's all intertwined. So there's kind of no like perfect order to it, in my opinion. The Statue of Liberty, this is, Poseidon. Or no, I'm sorry. Is this Poseidon or is this, I forget which deity this is. If someone knows, let me know. Let me pull up the text here. I'm getting a little off track with the text. The Trident. Okay. The key architecture element to the Twin Towers, so immense that they were simply overlooked or seen by eyes unaware. Either way, hiding in plain sight, there they were, massive tridents, the primary architectural element of the Twin Towers. Dr. Kathy Burns, writing in Masonic and Occult Symbols Illustrated, illuminates us as to the significance of this fact. Mythologist Joseph Campbell reminds us that the trefoil or trident is the symbol of Shiva, Poseidon, and Satan. The trident, sorry, let's go back to the trident. I'm showing the wrong image here. The trident is also a fire symbol. Indeed, in Christian iconography, the trident is the weapon of the devil. It might come as a surprise to some, but that's not a pitchfork old pip it's carrying. And the twin mega talismans were literally wrapped in a satanic symbol. Just for the record, Dealey Plaza in Dallas, where President Kennedy was assassinated, is laid out as a trident. So it's another mega ritual. These were, the two towers he calls supersized sacrificial altars. And so you have the images of the trident on there. Helios, there you go. Yeah, thank you, Dan. Yeah, there you go. Helios was the what I was showing earlier. As you attempt to process these implications of this revelation, consider this. Combined with other evidence, it now becomes extremely difficult to escape the conclusion that these buildings were designed and constructed with their ultimate purpose in mind. Kind of what I was just saying, right? It seems that these structures were preordained to become towering infernos, the gates of hell, hell on earth filled with tormented victims, innocents, heroes, whole sacrifices, human sacrifices, sacrificed by fire. They were unmistakably satanic mega altars. So, and I would agree after reading this book, S.K. Bain, the author of the most dangerous book in the world, as it's called, is saying here that these towers were built to be sacrificed, to be destroyed in this towering inferno. They were mega altars. So they were constructed for this purpose. There's also, by the way, I didn't have a picture of this, but there's a landfill in Staten Island where they recovered all the rubble. And it's literally called Fresh Kills Landfill on Staten Island. Yo, Volturo. Thank you, man. Another 20
Volturo
stack.
just donated a $20 gem. I think in some cases the people who design this stuff don't even realize it comes from a demonic suggestion. Just a schizo theory, though.
I guess that's possible. Yeah. I mean, a lot of it is, it's hard to know any of that, really. We're just seeing how it manifested, and then the rest is in the realm of speculation. But yeah, that could be true. That a lot of it is like, I think Hoffman and Bain both call it like occult synchronicity. So there's some of that going on. Again, it's kind of impossible to know, but it's just the way I see this stuff is like it's just the fingerprints of Satan. So what we're looking at is just like the fingerprints of the devil. He's working through people to follow through with his plan. And so we're just seeing the outworking of that. So I don't even think there's a point in trying to figure out how much of it was the people behind it knew exactly what they were doing and how much of it was like they were just being used as tool. I mean, they're all being used as tools of the devil, but they had more knowledge of it, right? Comes from logoismoi. Yeah, that's a great way to put it. And don't you forget it. On 9/11, the day of evil magic, the statue of Lucifer overlooked the ritual sacrifice of thousands of innocents and heroes in the twin vessels built, consecrated, and symbolically marked for that very purpose. So now we're getting into the Statue of Liberty. And yeah, and as Dan the man there pointed out, this is Helios, right? This is the god Helios, who also is depicted, Lucifer is depicted similar in theosophic, the theosophic symbols, and I guess, quote, iconography. You see him there with the point, what is it, 7-pointed crown, right? Same with Poseidon. So they all have the 7-pointed crown like the Statue of Liberty. And so you see, right between the feminine, the divine feminine that represents enlightenment, liberty, all these these enlightenment Luciferian principles that our nation was built on. Right in the middle there of the according to this perspective at least. I know obviously you can look at it from different perspectives and see it not between the towers, but it is framed between the towers if you look at it that way. So you have, you know, this occult goddess kind of overlooking this whole ritual. And just in case you didn't get to the point, 2 remaining tridents from the towers are being prominently incorporated into the memorial. So he's referencing what we just were looking at. For future reference, some of the same steel from the Twin Towers was used as the building of the USS New York, which, given the perverse inner workings of the minds of these evil sorcerers, may at some time be destroyed in another false flag attack. Okay, let's get a little bit into the Statue of Liberty since we're here. The silent overseer of the mega ritual. This gigantic gilded figure with its crown of solar rays and its unpraised torch signified occultly the glorious Sun Man of the mysteries, the universal savior, wrote by Manly P. Hall in his book, The Secret Teachings of All Ages. Hall was not writing about the Statue of Liberty, however, but rather the Colossus of Rhodes. That's what that is that we were looking at, the Colossus of Rhodes. An enormous bronze statue of the Greek god of the sun, Helios. Let me switch back to the previous slide here. That's Colossus. An enormous bronze statue of the Greek god of the sun, Helios, one of the 7 wonders of the ancient world. With its own crown of solar rays and unpraised torch, the Statue of Liberty, the original name for which was Liberty Enlightening the World, signifies occultly the light bearer, Lucifer, the Illuminati savior. Worth noting that the title of the sonnet by Emma Lazarus mounted inside the Statue of Liberty is The New Colossus. So it's a nod to that reference of being the new Colossus. The torch of illumination. Thus, Lucifer, the spirit of intellectual enlightenment and the freedom of thought, is metaphorically the guiding beacon, writes Helena Blavatsky in The Secret Doctrine, Volume 2. It's crazy that a lot of these like occult works are actually just echoing, but using like more... they're actually just like having these mask off moments where they're describing exactly what this stuff is, but they're just saying a lot of the stuff that the founding fathers believed, like the Enlightenment philosophers were teaching and stuff like that. I mean, it's Lucifer, enlightenment, right? Light. So the secret doctrine, which helps man to find his way through the rocks and sandbanks of life, for Lucifer is the logos in his highest. Sheesh. Lucifer as the guiding beacon is symbolized in the torch of illumination, one of the key symbols of the Illuminati, representing the illumination of Lucifer, a fact that French Freemason Frederick Bartholdi, designer of the Statue of Liberty, would have been well aware of. So the Statue of Liberty was designed by a Freemason. And also, I'll just skip to this now, the base of the Statue of Liberty was constructed by Freemasons and commenced in a Masonic ritual. And you can see this admitted on the Scottish Rite Freemasonry website, The Masonic Legacy of Lady Liberty. And this tells you all about the Masonic legacy of the symbol of America, one of them, of the Statue of Liberty. And so here he is, Brother Bartholdi. Where is it? Okay. Building the Statue of Liberty with the help of Freemasons. The idea that the monument proposed and accepted the grueling work of fundraising the project began when Bartholdi returned to France. He managed to raise, with the help of Franco-American Union, which many members were also Freemasons, the sum of 3,500,000 French francs. However, securing the sum of money took a great deal of time. Okay, so the Masons helped fundraise the project. Lady Liberty welcomed home by American Freemasonry. So the entire this is the plaque from the commencement. Here's, to this day, this is here on the cornerstone plaque of the Statue of Liberty. On this site in August 5th, 1884, we're going to see that date, August 5th, is also another synchronicity. The cornerstone of the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty enlightening the world was laid with ceremony by William A. Brodie, Grand Master of Masons in the state of New York. Grand Lodge members, representatives of the United States and French governments, Army and Navy officers, members of foreign legations, and distinguished citizens were present. This plaque is dedicated by the Masons of New York in commemoration of the 100th anniversary of that historic event. And that was in 1984. So they're recognizing the tradition of the Masonic tradition of the construction of the Statue of Liberty, enlightening the world, huh? So, I mean, that's probably all you need to know about that. So, like I said, the fingerprints of Satan are all over this world. And in many cases, it's very uncomfortable to confront this stuff. I know, especially if you're a patriotic type, which I can, believe it or not, I consider myself patriotic. I just don't get into all this, having to adopt the ideology of the founding fathers and all that. It's like you can be patriotic in a way that is not affirming all this Enlightenment stuff, right? It's like it's entirely anti-Christian. And so they're on the base, and I think he talks about the star here. Let me see in the text. I forget what this star is called. This is this is another Masonic symbol, but you can see that it was adopted by by Crowley. So this is what I mean by I don't want to expose you guys to this stuff too much, and not that it has any power, but this is a Crowleyan sigil. Here's another theme that runs throughout the book that I'm not going to get too into because there's a lot here, but Sirius. There's a dog that they kind of made a famous hero of 9/11. He was the only surviving animal I think he was not surviving. He died. So it was the only animal that died in 9/11. So he was sacrificed, using that in quotes, in this ritual. There's one animal sacrifice, and that was for this dog named Sirius. And this is from an occult text that says, "'Twas the season when the vault of heaven bends its most scorching heat upon the earth, and Sirius the dog, star-smitten by Hyperion's the sun's full might, pitilessly burns the painting fields." It's stuff like this that you can't deny. That there's all this occult, and this is one excerpt, by the way. S.K. Bain lists a ton of these excerpts from various occult texts that are talking about Sirius the dog. And then you have the one animal that dies in 9/11, and his name is Sirius. It's like, are you serious? And so let me see if there's a whole chapter on this, I think, on Sirius. So again, this stuff I could spend an entire stream on one of the things that we're covering, but just for the purposes of actually getting through this, I'm going to be probably bouncing around a lot as I have been so far. But these dates have significance with Sirius. So for example, the tablet held by the Statue of Liberty is inscribed with the Roman numerals with July 4th, 1776, which is widely recognized as the date of the adoption of the Declaration of Independence, but it was also when the Illuminati was founded. I believe even just 1 month prior. I know it was in that same summer. I believe it was in June, if I'm not mistaken. It was June 8th or something that the Illuminati was founded by Adam Weishaupt. So the Illuminati predates the Declaration of Independence by like a month. However, there's a deeper significance behind the date which our Independence Day falls, and we'll soon discover. The cornerstone of the pedestal of the Statue of Liberty was laid in a Masonic ceremony on August 5th, so we just covered that. Was this merely a means employed to connect the two locations through time and space, preparation for the 9/11 mega ritual, or is even more to the story? Yeah, Psalm 19:1. That is exactly what I'm reading from that book. A common denominator, the birth of the United States of America and the date inscribed on the Statue of Liberty's tablet, the cornerstone laying the Statue of Liberty's pedestal, and the groundbreaking of the World Trade Center, the groundbreaking ceremony for the Pentagon, and the attacks of New York and Arlington/Washington. Why are these dates used by occultists in repeated fashion? What do they have in common? The dates in question are all connected to the brightest object in the occult pantheon, as well as the brightest star in the night sky, Sirius, the dog star. There you go. It would be difficult to exaggerate the fanatical degree of attachment the priesthood of Egypt and all subsequent related Hermetic traditions had for Sirius, writes Michael Hoffman in Secret Societies and Psychological Warfare. The entire calendar year of the Egyptians was based on the rising times of this star. Indeed, Sirius was of unique importance to the Egyptians and is recorded in the earliest astronomical records. During the Middle Kingdom, Egyptians based their calendar on Sirius's heliacal rising, the date on which the star or other celestial bodies becomes most visible in the eastern horizon just before the sunrise after a period of absence from view. So that's tonight, because this is the new year, according to the Egyptian calendar. So if I'm not mistaken, it's talking about tonight. This dog star is the most visible in the night sky. In ancient Egypt, Sirius's heliacal rising originally occurred just before the annual flooding of the Nile River and the summer solstice after a 7-day absence from the skies. And so the blazing star, this is what I was referring to, the blazing star from, so it's referenced in Albert Pike's Moral and Dogmas. The ancient astronomers saw all the great symbols of masonry and the stars. Sirius glitters in our lodges and the blazing star. He continues, in Freemasonry, it is taught the blazing star is a symbol of deity and omnipresence. The Creator is present everywhere, and the omniscience, the Creator sees and knows all. Okay, so that's not wrong. Sirius is therefore the sacred place all Masons must ascend to. Now that's where it gets occultic, right? It is the source of divine power and the destination of divine individuals. So this is like an inversion of theosis, right? To achieve perfection, so right there, he's hinting at their, this what is really apotheosis, because it's like through human enlightenment and ascension through these, these Kabbalistic ascents, basically, like ascending through the mysteries, right? And the dual nature of the world, good and evil, masculine and feminine.
Voltru donated $10 through Super Chat. I would suggest the book Occult America by Mitch Horowitz. The author goes into detail on how lots of this imagery came to be.
Voltru, thank you again, man. I saw, I think, a reference to that in this book. I'll definitely look into that. Thank you, dude. Sirius is therefore the sacred place of all Masons. To achieve perfection, the initiate must successfully understand and internalize the dual nature of the world, good and evil, masculine and feminine, black and white, etc., through alchemical metamorphosis. This concept is symbolically represented in the union of Osiris and Isis, male and female. Okay, this is again a concept that runs throughout. It's like one of the most prominent themes of all these esoteric traditions. The union of opposites, of opposing forces. To give birth to Horus, the star child, the Christ-like figure, the perfected man of Freemasonry, who is equated with the blazing star. Again, these are the words of Albert Pike, who is the infamous Grand Master Freemason who wrote all this Freemasonic philosophy. wrote Morals and Dogma, which is like essential reading for Freemasons. So, again, this is a whole chapter. I won't read this whole thing, but what we're looking at, let me get back to the slide here. In this slide, as he describes the Crowleyan sigil, this, what does he call this? The Argentinium Astrum, or Silver Star, by the Masons and the Rosicrucians. And in 1907, Aleister Crowley started his own occult order called the AA. Now, what is AA in relation to 9/11? American Airlines, right? So that's that whole thing is a Crowleyan reference, AA. And then you have American Airlines Flight 11, you have Flight 77, you have Flight... what was the other one? 142, I believe. I forget the number, but that was another Crowleyan reference. First and foremost is the energy or force emanating from the sun, Sirius. Okay, so it's just all this occult stuff. Like, I don't need to get too into this, but these symbols are very important for these occultists, right? So there's a whole page of quotes about the Sirius dog, the dog star, and its occult significance. So these Egyptian mystery religions are really important to the cryptocracy. They're very prominent. So you see this stuff all over the place. Not only on our dollar bills, not only in Washington, where you see all this, these pyramids and stuff, right? You see here that oops. What did I just do? We all know this symbol, right? The Novus Ordo Seclorum. That's on our money. But, you see that, so this is in the skyline, and what you see there is like, this is a newer photo, I guess. So this was where the Twin Towers were. You can see better in this photo here. So you have these three buildings that are constructed to represent different types of Egyptian wow, I just blanked on the word. Egyptian, wow, I literally just blanked on the word. I was almost going to say archaeology, but it's, I literally just forgot a word that I know and use very often. It's like a very elementary word. Okay, I'm going to move on. So you have the unfinished pyramid, this building here. And then you have the stepped pyramid, which is represented on all three. Not Egyptology. It's literally, I'm trying to describe the word that is constructing buildings. This is the weirdest thing that I forgot this word. Architecture. Thank you. My goodness. Architecture. I swear I'm not that retarded. Okay. I know the word architecture. This is Egyptian architecture. Okay. Thank you. We'll act like that didn't happen. So you have the square pyramid, which is like the traditional, triangle pyramid that everyone knows. That's on the middle one. And then you have a dome. So there's nothing particularly esoteric about domes or pyramid. It's just the imagery that they adopted and implemented in the mystery religions, right? So it's all the Orthodox churches have domes on them. Does that mean there's some kind of esoteric meaning to that? No, it's probably just that was the architecture that they used. I won't go into all that, but there's some significance to it within the context of Orthodoxy. But yeah, so it's not saying that these are exclusively occult, images or something, but that's all represented there on the skyline. And then also, like we covered earlier, the building 7, which is the Solomon building, as they call it. So here's the Pentagon. I think we all know what that is, right? So you can see that there. Here's some more schizonumerology. 11 plus 175 plus 93 plus 77. And now it's like, okay, what is the context of this? These are, the flight numbers. So that equals, they all equal to, the flight numbers and I think the story numbers that the planes hit. Yeah, so 93 is the story that it hit on the first tower and then 77 on the second tower. I might be reversing that, but you have the 11 is the plane, 175 is the second plane, and then 93 is the floor it hit, the first floor that it hit, and then 77 is the second floor that it hit on the second tower. So they all equate to 356, and they reduce to 14, which reduces to 5. So 5 points. Again, I know it sounds really out there, but you have to understand this is the Crowleyan formula, okay? This is just what they're using. Like, so this is their system. It's not like you're a schizo for breaking this down. This is just the Crowleyan formula. 9/11/2001, you know that reduces to 14, to another one, 5. So that also reduces to 5. The 60th anniversary of groundbreaking on 9/11, 1941. The height of the height of the Pentagon is 77 feet, which reduces to 3.5 inches. 5 floors above. Second basement is 7 floors total, including the 2 basements. Okay, 5 sides times 5 rings is 25. Total sides reduces to 7. Total airtime of flight 77 was 1 hour 17 minutes equals 77 minutes. Now, I have an image here of the supposed plane that hit the Pentagon. I mean, if you know anything about 9/11 conspiracy, you know that there's no evidence that a plane even hit the Pentagon. Some say it was a missile. All we have is that like surveillance camera footage that just shows an explosion. So there's no evidence of a plane actually hitting it. And the maneuver that the plane made to hit the Pentagon was like unreal. Like it was, there's a documentary that you guys should watch if you haven't already. It's called September 11th, The New Pearl Harbor. I consider it the essential 9/11 documentary to watch. Like outside of this occult stuff, like if you just want to know the basic like absurdity of these conspiracies, watch that documentary. It's like 11 hours long. It's super long because they go through painstaking detail to debunk all of the debunkers, basically. This guy also, by the way, the same guy did a similar documentary with the same format about the moon landing, where he's debunking the debunkers. So it's like a really cool format because it's like it's argumentative, and he's posing all these really thought-provoking questions and stuff. But anyway, in that documentary, he shows the flight path that this alleged plane that hit the Pentagon took, and they were unable to replicate it with expert pilots in a simulation after multiple tries. I don't remember how many tries. They did various, they basically took, let's say 10 tries, and they couldn't do it for like expert pilots. And the pilots for the supposed hijackers were described by their flight school instructors as piss poor. They couldn't even fly, a private, like a private plane. Like they couldn't fly like a smaller plane. So like, how are you doing this maneuver in a 747 with pinpoint accuracy and actually hitting your target? So it makes no sense, but that's a little bit of an aside. You also see this, architecture or this layout, in the geography of Washington, D.C. There's a pentagram, and at each point, and there's another symbol here, which is the triple tau. This is a Masonic. It's like the Masonic compass. At some of these points, I don't know if it's all of them, but at some of the points are these landmarks. So you have the Lincoln Memorial, the Jefferson Memorial, the Washington Monument. So you have that big obelisk right there in the middle. There's the White House, which is at the bottom point of the pentagram. Okay, this is your Christian nation, right? That all these Protestant LARPers are talking about how we were founded upon this Christian, these Christian founding fathers. Like here it is right here. This is your Christian nation, right?
Trevzone donated $10 through Super Chat. It's wild that a lot of these things were meticulously planned out hundreds of years in advance.
Yeah, thank you, Trevzon, for the 10, man. I appreciate that. Yeah, I referenced that earlier, how this was a plan that was going on for like millennia. I mean, this is all, and it's not like the plan is over with or whatever. Like this is all just leading towards the end of the age. However, 9/11 was an incredibly significant event that was like a culmination of all this stuff that had been brewing, I guess, in the various like esoteric traditions as they became synchronized throughout time and all this. So yeah, that's a great point there. I appreciate that. Let me just make sure I think I covered all my slides. And like I said, there's a lot that I didn't even cover here. There's a lot. So to cover it all within one stream is like, I don't think it would be possible. So I basically went through the stuff that really stood out to me. And again, there's even more. Maybe I'll do a follow-up if you guys would like that. There's also, I didn't even mention this. The Airborne Command Center, the Doomsday plane, because we're on that topic right now. Let me pull up the text here. Doomsday plane. Okay. This is a reference to, he titles this as below, so above, which is referencing the Baphomet. Again, that pose that he's doing is the as above, so below. You see this also in the Hermetic, the depiction of Hermes, Trismegistus, the as above, so below. So very, kind of perceived to be like this ancient icon. On the morning of 9/11, a white mystery plane was spotted in the skies over Washington, D.C. In the minutes immediately following the attack on the Pentagon, it was seen circling in the restricted airspace of the White House, further alarming already tense Secret Service agents. So again, consider the landscape here that we're looking at. And this is what's happening in the air. As above, so below, right? So you have the symbol below, and then what's happening in the air is you have this $800 million aircraft, which was a modified Boeing 747, considered to be the most advanced communications platform and state-of-the-art airborne command center. This is detailed in the book, The 9/11 Mystery Plane. So there's a whole book on this plane by David Ray Griffin, who's another 9/11 conspiracy writer that is very highly regarded. I have one of his books. He's an excellent researcher. This plane was characteristically painted white, with its most distinguishing feature being a pronounced pod located directly behind the cockpit. Let's put this bit of information into context. The Air Force, which couldn't manage to get a single interceptor fighter jet in the air that morning until it was too late, had its aptly named Doomsday plane aloft in the skies above Washington at the very moment the Pentagon was supposedly struck with pinpoint accuracy by a flying dunce after he performed a 330-degree downward spiral that lasted over 3 minutes. There you go. There's the more of the occult numerology there. 330-degree spiral that lasted 3 minutes. Okay. And that is what you can ascribe the impossibility of that maneuver to. It's an occult number. That's why no expert pilots were able to replicate that maneuver. Even though the airspace above Washington is the most heavily monitored on the entire planet, the Pentagon never ordered an evacuation of the building, and as a result, 125 servicemen and women died, again, as with the victims in the Twin Towers amidst the flame and smoke. Sorry, I'm just seeing, if you're tuned in over on Substack, I apologize for not checking the chat. That's my bad, but I'm just looking now. I appreciate all your comments there, guys. Thank you for participating in the chat. Tom, Michael, I see you guys there. Payload, what's up, man? Yeah, I apologize for not addressing the chat there. It doesn't come in on the platform I use. There's some interesting comments there as well. So even though the airspace above Washington is okay, covered that. The Pentagon was simply not aware that this aircraft was coming our way. One official is quoted as saying in David Ray Griffin's foreword to Gaffney's book, which is patently absurd statement given the blanket overlapping ground radar coverage in the area, and even more so considering the presence of the that's the Doomsday plane, the E-4B it's called. Just when you think you've heard it all the entire scenario couldn't get any more ridiculously suspicious or suspiciously ridiculous. This little fact emerges. In information obtained by the FAA in 2008 under a FOIA request, we learned the call signal of the Doomsday plane circling the skies above DC on 9/11, Venus 77. Again, there's no possible way I can be convinced that that is a mere coincidence. So this information, it's like, what do you do with this, right? These people believe this stuff. Whether there's actually like a metaphysical, like magical transmutation happening or not, these guys actually believe this stuff to the point where they're naming all this stuff. They call signals, the numbers, the flights, the floors that they're hitting, everything has an occult significance. They cross their T's and dot their I's, as they say. That's right, yet another 77. Apparently, you can't just have too many. And wouldn't you know it, yet another pentagram reference, the successive inferior conjunctions of the planet Venus against the zodiac form a pentagram. Thus, in occult thought, this geometric form represents Venus, and Venus invokes the pentagram. Just Google it. The Romans designated the morning aspect of Venus as Lucifer, literally light bringer. Again, as above, so below. So, yeah, this book is full of this stuff. You also have the U.S. military. I didn't put this on the slide, but, the 5 stars that are that are creating a circle. The 5 pointed stars, it's five pointed stars in a circle that create like another recursion thing, right? See if I can pull up an image of this so you guys know what I'm talking about. 5 stars. Yeah, here you go. This is what I'm talking about. Right, we've all seen that. I don't know if there's a name to it, but yeah, it's like a recursion, right? Because it's 5 pointed stars. It creates it's five pointed stars that create a pentagram or a pentagon. So, and like a normie would look at that and just be like, well, that's just the shape that the stars make. They were replicating it because that's the Department of Defense. That's like where that's where it's headquartered. So they're resembling it. Yeah. But that has a significance too. Right. So this stuff isn't just random. You're an idiot if you think this is random. I'm not the idiot for actually knowing what these symbols represent. You're the idiot for thinking that that's just like random, some kind of random coincidence. Like, how would it would take more effort to prove that this stuff is coincidence than to just accept that this is what it is. So I think let me just make sure here that there's nothing else that okay. So this is just kind of off the cuff here. I'm just looking at my notes. The World Trade Center Building 7 is a trapezoidal building that represents the Pythagorean theorem, the 47th problem of elucid. So it had 47 stories. So like that stuff is all by design. How many stories does a building get, right? As an architect, you have to decide that. So engineered synchronicities, we covered a lot of that. Yeah, the blazing star. The Skull and Bones death cult is the Thule Society. So we saw the reference to Thule. The Millennium Hilton monolith. Did we cover that? No, we didn't. So there's another building in the skyline, the Millennium Hilton, which is it's literally designed as a monolith that resembles the monolith in 2001 Space Odyssey. You have that. You have another synchronicity there, 2001. Okay. So let's. Thank you.
There are indeed patterns. It's a demonic liturgy.
Yes.
Just like there are patterns and meanings in the divine liturgy.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you for the 5. I appreciate that, man. Yeah, that's exactly right. It's a demonic mockery of the liturgy. Absolutely. So just like in the liturgy, everything has a meaning and a purpose, and it has like a divine significance, and we're bringing heaven on to, bringing in heaven on earth. Like there's a symbolic reference to everything, to the T, right? This is Satan's mockery of that. And how does he do it? Through terror. So this whole grand mass ritual is a terror ritual. It's a satanic, burnt offering. It's a satanic sacrifice, ritually carried out by this script that was designed throughout millennium. So let's, before we look at some other interesting stuff that I have for the memorials, I want to read where is it here? This is the script. I maybe should have read this first, but S.K. Bain adds this at the end of the book, actually. So, this is the order he put it in, was towards the end. So it's like kind of to just restate what this ritual is. Let me just make sure this isn't too long. Okay, he talks about Shanksville. So while I'm on this, there was a reference to Shanksville that was, I would say, maybe an example of a bit of a stretch, where it seemed like there wasn't a whole lot of occult reference to what happened in Shanksville. Maybe that was because it wasn't supposed to happen. I don't know. Maybe that was like a mistake that was carried out in the ritual, because it's like a part of the crazy part of the craziness of this ritual is how everything happened with such precision, right? So let's say this is all true, and they chose how these particular planes would hit these particular floors of the World Trade Center. The question is, how did they do that with such precision? When the pilots, when these expert pilots couldn't replicate those maneuvers, even the planes that hit the towers, they tried to replicate those, and the altitude that the planes were flying at, where the probability of them hitting their targets at that altitude, controlling the plane at that altitude, were so unlikely. So for both planes to hit with precision, the floors that they chose to hit is how did that even happen? And now you can get into they weren't even really planes that hit or whatever. Maybe. I'm not going to get into all that, but that's part of the crazy synchronicity of this ritual, was that everything happened according to plan, presumably. But Shanksville is a weird one because he wasn't able to connect much. And I think, to my memory, the main thing that he was talking about with that was the pilots at Shanks, the pilots on the plane of Shanksville were they had box cutters or something. So they were shanked, I guess, by the passengers, took them out with a box cutter. So they were shanked. So it's they landed in Shanksville. It's maybe that may actually be a coincidence. Who knows? You could argue that he's making a stretch there. So, I can relate to writing something like this. There is a temptation to overstate the point, and maybe look for stuff that's not there. I don't know if that's the case for that, but he talks about a crescent or something that was formed in the wreckage, right? It's like a crescent moon. So I didn't get too much into that, but yeah, let me see where I can read here. Okay. So this is to restate the ritual. September 11th, a most suspicious date for a ritual undertaking. New Year's Day on the occult calendar, a date connected to the heliacal rising of the occultist spiritual sun. Let me just so you're not looking at this pentagram. And then I have a couple more slides and we'll wrap up, guys. Thank you for staying tuned here. I appreciate all of you being here and tuning into the stream, trying to understand what's going on here, especially in the relevance of what's going on now today, deciphering these events. Yeah, I'm not able to share, for whatever reason, I can't share the app that I'm using for the text, but so we'll just have to skip that. My bad. We'll go back to the slides. I'll pick a better slide to look at so you guys aren't looking at this thing. Here, let's do this. Okay, so back to the text here. We're going to restate this ritual. So this is on the New Year's Day of the occult calendar, a date connected to the heliacal rising of the occultist spiritual sun Sirius, the dog star, a date that also pays homage to the Egyptian lord of time, Thoth, through the name of the first month of the new year, Taut, highly fitting for a ceremony focused heavily on timing and time itself. On this date, imbued with occult meaning, winged mercurial messengers of death take to the skies, filled with sacrificial victims unknowingly awaiting their fate. 19 individuals believing themselves to be Islamic jihadists. Evidence suggests that perhaps not all of them were true believers. Soon to be martyrs, receiving their rewards in paradise, readied themselves to take control of our four airliners with box cutters, which in itself is absurd. That, like, have you guys ever thought about this? Like, okay, these guys hijacked planes with box cutters, and not one person was like willing to just try to disarm them, even if it meant that they got sliced or killed or something by a box cutter. You know, I know we just watched that that event happen with the Ukrainian girl getting stabbed with I think it was a pocket knife. So it's like, yeah, you can kill somebody with a box cutter, but not a single person will, like, actually, you know, maybe there's, I think there's stories of people trying to fight them or something, but it's like, how did they pull that off with a box cutter? That's pretty wild. The ceremony officially commences as American Airlines Flight 11, AA11, ritually marked, consecrated with the number of magic itself, slams into the North Tower in the World Trade Center, declaring the initiation of a magical operation. You have President and bonesman George Bush arrives at Booker Elementary School in Sarasota, Florida, the state which had given him the presidency in 2000, and where his brother Jeb is governor, and where the 9/11 ringleader and hijacker pilot of AA-11, Mohammed Atta, had received part of his flight training. The commander-in-chief, as high priest, is in paradise, presiding over a black mass, complete with little black children chanting out the words of the pet goat, about which Osama bin Laden will later crack jokes on Al Jazeera, saying that Bush was more occupied with the goat and its budding than the planes and their budding of the skyscrapers. There's bin Laden actually was he seemed like kind of a funny guy. And if you've ever read, there was a letter, I think he called it the Letter to America, where he actually names the Jews, and it's pretty interesting. I saw it it was pretty viral, I think a couple years ago. People were like, oh, like all these kind of like newly initiated people into the 9/11 conspiracy world were like, oh, look what I found. Like it was new. It's like, we've known about this for a long time, but it's a letter that's like very, very anti-Semitic that bin Laden wrote about America that you should check out. So he's talking about, like, yeah, Bush was more concerned with the black goat and its budding than the planes hitting the skyscrapers. So this ritual invoked Baphomet, even as United Airlines Flight 175 slams into the South Tower, an act designated to invoke Aleister Crowley's Liber 175, the Book of Uniting to a particular deity by devotion. They are stating their intentions in declaring their devotion not simply to Satan, but also to Crowley, as he has been made evident by the entire day's proceedings constitute no less than an ode to Aleister Crowley. He goes into like Ozzy Osbourne, Mr. Crowley and stuff, and how Ozzy was invited to the White House by the Bush administration after 9/11. The two concrete and steel recreations of the fabled Pillars of Hermes, the god of commerce and trade, also the thieves and robbers, so that's interesting, World Trade Center, stand mortally wounded as Hermes himself prepares to undertake his traditional role as psychopomp, escort the souls of the dead to the underworld. In the tarot, the Tower card has been known as the House of the Damned, and the Twin Towers have become enormous sacrificial altars. Very soon, the doorway between the two pillars will be opened, and the veil of Isis will be symbolically torn asunder as the towers came crashing down to the ground and a gateway to hell esoterically created. So again, like whether this stuff is like really happening, obviously it's not like a literal gateway to hell, but I think symbolically this is what they're trying to say. So in Arlington, AA-77, piloted by a hijacker who, according to the flight instructor, couldn't fly at all, performs near impossible aerial acrobatics in order to hit the west face of the Pentagon. This part of the building had been recently renovated, and the Office of Naval Intelligence had just moved in. Also, it's said that this is where the records of the lost transactions that Donald Rumsfeld announced on September 10th of the $2.3 trillion that was missing and couldn't be accounted for. This is where those records were. So conveniently hit that exact spot of the Pentagon. A massive version of an ancient and powerful occult symbol, the Pentagon sits at the 77th meridian west and is 77 feet tall. AA-77 was marked with this same number, which according to Aleister Crowley is the number of magical power and perfection, and also conjures the 77 infernal names from Anton LaVey's Satanic Bible. And what is that in the sky? It's a bird, it's a plane, it's the Doomsday plane to be exact, call signal Venus 77. Groundbreaking for the Pentagon began 60 years to the day prior to 9/11/2001, which also happens to be former U.S. Solicitor General Ted Olson's birthday. Olson supposedly receives 2 cell phone calls that fateful morning from his third wife, Barbara, who was en route aboard AA-77 to a taping of Politically Incorrect, and who may also be one and the same as Olson's third wife. Okay, so that part, I'm not really, okay, that's kind of maybe a stretch, but, and then he talks about Shanksville. So I don't think there's too much to Shanksville, to be honest, but you can decide that yourself. And then you have all the Sirius black magic, right? So yeah, the World Financial Center buildings, this is all occurring at, right? In conclusion, as an overview of the overview, then Bush, the high priest, sits in paradise on New Year's Day, overseeing a global satanic mega ritual which features winged messengers of death as a tribute to the prince of the power of the air. These flying harbingers of doom deliver their payloads of human sacrifices to their mega talisman targets, invoking all sorts of astral hell in the process. The number of magic is everywhere, including an 11-year countdown to 9/11, and the entire mega ritual takes place in plain sight. So there you go. Now, I want to look at some of the stuff, these weird rituals that occurred to commemorate 9/11. So you'll see this one. This was the Ground Zero Commencement Memorial ritual that depicts the Eye of Horus and a CBS logo in the lower right there.
Saw that morning, being down here now, as different as it looks, I still have those visuals, those images in my mind, in my head.
We're on, as a nation, officially now, the
suicide bombers. It happens in Israel on a daily basis. Those are the things we have to be careful of now. We have to watch for now.
Do you expect suicide bombers? Plane struck the North Tower of the World Trade Center 1 year ago. Hundreds of people have gathered here at Ground Zero to mark the anniversary in what is expected to be, we tell you that the anniversary ceremony will also include several moments of silence, marking the times that the hijacked jets hit the place roses on the site for a flower arrangement.
I wonder if they took 7 minutes of silence. There's another strange thing that occurred. I don't remember when this was, but a man was pulled into the reflecting pool. Check this out.
This is the horrifying moment. A man slides into the 20 feet central void of the 9/11 reflecting pool after hurling himself 30 feet into the basin of the New York City Memorial. Terrified onlookers watched on as he lay prostrate, peering over the edge into the abyss before sliding himself forward and falling headfirst down to the bottom.
Very bizarre. Why? So more terror because the people seeing this are terrified, right?
The fire department quickly rushed to rescue the man from the central drop, which is filled with around 18 inches of water. He reportedly told one of the officers he did this for his father. The man was rushed to a local hospital complaining of back pain and suffering from an injured leg. Following a mental evaluation, he could face trespassing charges. Before the reflection pools were constructed, there was cause for concern that a physical landmark for a tragedy is a trigger for grief and could set off a negative psychological reaction.
That's the point.
Glenn P. Corbett, an associate professor of fire science at John Jay College, said, "Our big worry several years ago, in the original design, was terrorism, and now we add suicide to the equation. It is an unbelievably emotional sight."
Yep, psychological warfare, there you go. So, a very bizarre, indescribable thing that happened there. Now, this is another ritual that took place in 2016 at the Lincoln Center. So, this is a 9/11 tribute. And this is a 40-minute video. Obviously, we're not going to watch this whole thing, but I just want you to see that this is clearly an occult ritual. So this guy's playing the flute. I mean, it starts off all calm. I'm sure there's like, if you were to break this down, I'm sure you could ascribe occult significance to what they're doing here. You know, the tones they're making, stuff like that, I'm sure has some significance. Very bizarre. I mean, this is 40 minutes of them doing this stuff. Okay, beating drums, right? So it reminds me of like the tapping on the book of the pet goat book, right? How the teacher is like drumming on the book as they're chanting that spell. Yeah, I mean, you get the idea, right? It's this whole thing, 40 minutes of this. What? And it's around, I mean, I don't think this is at, yeah, where's the Lincoln Center? Is this in New York? It must be. But you know, there's all, like a ground zero now, it's just full of all this occult imagery. It's like basically these towers came down and they just replaced it with more occult imagery, you know? So they're having all these rituals there. And then you have the merging, to kind of like draw everything to a close here, I guess. The merging of opposing forces. You have World Trade Center 1. Merging of opposites. So it's kind of like, it's got the big antenna on the top. Remember, the two towers, one had an antenna to represent the male, and then the other was the female. And now you have the merging of opposites, so you have the antenna at the top, and it's got this kind of like, I guess, like in architectural design terms, like maybe you could consider the construction, like the building itself is a little bit more like feminine, if you could describe it that way, because it's got the rounded corners and stuff. It's not as like strong looking or whatever. And so, yeah, maybe that's just the depiction of that. It's just it's an emerging, it's the merging of opposites. All right. So the two comes down and it merges into one World Trade Center. So, we can go back to, which slide was it? This here, not that one. You can go back here and just see that theme of the merging of opposites. You see it in Kabbalah, right? So, I mean, this is like, anyone who's like knows anything about the occult knows this is like one of the primary themes, this merging of opposing forces. So I think that is all that I had to cover. Let me just check. Let's do this. I'm going to take the screen off here so you guys don't have to look at more of this imagery. And I'm going to catch up on chat. The psyop that keeps on giving, yeah. What's this one here? The Tower Tarot card comes directly after the Devil card and is associated with sudden disruptive revelation and potentially destructive change. It predicts unforeseen catastrophe coming. That's crazy. Yeah, and again, like this stuff doesn't actually predict anything, It's like it's just it's like what engineered synchronicity, as Michael Hoffman calls it. So, the thing is, the knowledge that once you acquire this knowledge, there's no going back to seeing the world the way you used to. You may start to feel isolated because you literally can't talk to normies about this stuff. You may lose friends over it. Your family will think you've lost your mind. And it's tempting to go further down the rabbit hole. It can make things worse though. So don't lose sight of the only exit from this wicked world, that is our Lord Jesus Christ. And in fact, when you get glimpses into the machinations of these dark occultists that we just saw, these people seek to restructure the material world. You see the devil's fingerprints all over it. That's whether or not this stuff is actualizing in the real world the way that they think it does. That's why I don't think it's important to try to figure that out. I don't think we should get involved in that. The fact is, it's just the devil's fingerprints. So to obsess over trying to figure out if this is occult magic or it has any actual influence on reality is itself a demonic deception. So, you don't give more power to these people that they have, right? It's like they're LARPing, right? They're LARPing and they're just carrying about these plans the way that they are, like they're being used by Satan. They're tools. So whether they're conscious or unconscious of it, they're being used as tools. So, yeah, you don't hate the world enough, Anon. And by the way, by hate the world, I mean not to despise the world and the people in it or God's creation itself, but rather to reject and to guard yourself against the sinful, corrupt systems that this world has led us away from, or that this world leads us away. It seeks to lead us away from Christ. That's what it's all doing. So that's what the reversion's all about, by the way. So it's to reject the world and the corrupt systems of it and turn to Christ, to revert back to the ancient faith, which is the Orthodox faith. So that's it for this episode. I hope that you guys got some value out of this in a weird way, because I know this stuff is very dark. But to quote the Saint Ignatius Brianchaninov, who I quote often, understand the spirit of the age so you can avoid its influence. That doesn't mean obsess over this stuff, but when you understand this stuff, it's like it makes it, I think, in a sense, easier to turn away from it, because you don't have to get like wrapped up and tempted by these ideologies, these philosophies that govern the modern world, and just know that it's all fake and gay, basically. So I hope that's a good insight to kind of leave us off here. But thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate all of you guys. Thank you to my audience over on Substack. I appreciate all 99 of you exactly who tuned in. This will be posted on the Substack, so make sure that you subscribe over there as well. If you don't already, over on YouTube, I'm talking to you, and on X. I think we're broadcasting on X as well. Make sure that you go over to thereversion.co and become a paid or free subscriber to support my work. We don't see the...
Vulturu just donated a $20 gem.
Dude,
Good
Vulturu.
night.
Yeah, and big thank you to Vulturu, man, for basically funding the entire the entire stream here. I really appreciate all the very generous donations from you, man. I really do. It's been very epic support. So thank you very much, especially to Vulturu, who showed up today and is the top pay piggy by far. So I don't think anyone's going to be dethroning him for a while. So thank you, my man Vulturu. So yeah, we got more stuff coming up. I don't have anything planned exactly like this, but I do want to maybe come back on and talk more about this another unfortunate tragedy. I mean, I hate to be covering these very tragic, dark things that are happening in our world. But I mean, the fact is, this is what we're being bombarded with. For those of us who are exposed to what's going on in the world to any degree, you will notice that things are very dark. So, we need to kind of try to make sense of this stuff and always again remind ourselves that Christ is the only exit from all of this these dark forces that are at play here, the cryptocracy that is trying to, basically bombard us with all this psychological warfare. So that's what you're getting when you open the timeline. Remember the example I gave today, earlier on the stream, when I was talking about how I found out Charlie Kirk was assassinated. I literally opened the app and saw the video without even reading about it. That's how I received the news, was I saw the close-up of him being executed and the blood coming out of his neck, which I really wish I hadn't seen. Consider yourself blessed if you didn't see that video, and make efforts to avoid seeing it. But the thing is, as long as you're on that timeline, there's a high probability you're going to see it whether you want to or not, because the way that the content is distributed algorithmically. So that's the world we live in now, is that the psychological warfare is happening on the timeline algorithmically, and it's automated. So it's unprecedented, the amount of psyops that we're undergoing right now. And, that's why it's very important, this stuff that we're covering. That's not to toot my own horn, because I'm sure that there's stuff that, I could be covering much better, but, I'm trying here. And so, yeah, I think that maybe next stream we'll once I have more information on what's going on with that, we'll try to make sense of that and make some connections there, if that's even worth our time. But, a lot of people are looking for answers right now. I mean, seeing a horrific event like that, same as 9/11, is like, why? We want to know why. Why did this happen? There was a reason for it. There was definitely a high level of a professional assassin that was carrying out that execution. That's undoubted. So it's like, what's the connection there? Who was he? Who was the guy? Like, why did they do that? Why Charlie Kirk? Why not a politician? Why'd they pick some guy that's just going around debating on college campuses? Maybe it was some crazy leftoid. I don't know, but we'll uncover that as more information comes in. So stay tuned for that. And I don't have any other announcements, so I will be taking a vacation towards on the first the first week of October. So I'll try to put out some more content for while I'm gone. But otherwise, we'll see you next time. Thank you again to all the supporters there. Check my workout on Substack. That's the reversion.co/subscribe to become a free or paid subscriber. That's where the entire archive of my work is, and you'll be notified whenever I post new content and or go live. So thank you to all the supporters over on Substack. Appreciate all you guys. I apologize again for not being really on top of the chat there. I have to get better at that because it's like separate from the YouTube chat. But I have read all of your comments and I appreciate your participation. So, all right, signing off. God bless. And I don't really have a call for signing off, so I'll just say God bless.